The stars looked different that night. Commander Hyunwoo stood on the observation deck of the orbital station, watching the unknown vessel hang in space like a silent ghost. It had appeared 3 days ago at the edge of the solar system, and nobody knew what to make of it. The ship was massive, larger than anything humanity had ever built. Its surface shimmered with colors that seemed to shift and change, like oil on water. It did not move. It did not attack. It simply waited, broadcasting the same message over and over in patterns of light and mathematics. Dr. Yuna had been working around the clock to decode the message. She sat in her lab surrounded by screens filled with numbers and symbols, her eyes red from lack of sleep. When she finally understood what the aliens were saying, her hands began to shake. She called Commander Hyunwoo immediately. He arrived at her lab within minutes, still wearing his uniform from the morning briefing. Yuna looked up at him with an expression he had never seen on her face before. It was fear. "They are warning us," she said quietly, "about something called the Erasure. They say it is coming here and we need to leave." Hyunwoo frowned. He had fought in the Mars colony wars and survived 3 assassination attempts. He did not scare easily. "What is the Erasure?" Yuna pulled up images on the main screen. According to their message, it is a phenomenon that moves through space and destroys everything in its path. Matter, energy, even light. They say 13 other civilizations have already been consumed by it. And they want us to believe this? Hyunwoo crossed his arms. It could be a trick, a way to make us panic so they can invade while we are weak. That is what I thought too, Yuna admitted. But their mathematics is real. I checked it 3 times. They are showing us gravitational data, energy signatures, things we cannot fake with our current technology. Either they are telling the truth, or they are far more advanced than we ever imagined. President Dae-sung arrived at the station that evening. He was a tall man with gray hair and a face that showed the weight of leading 12 billion people. He listened to Yuna's presentation in silence, his expression growing darker with each passing minute. When she finished, he turned to his military advisors. General Tae-hyun spoke first. "Sir, I recommend we treat this as a potential hostile situation. We should move our fleet into defensive positions and prepare for combat." Ambassador Ji-won, the only civilian in the room besides Yuna, shook her head. That would be a mistake. If they wanted to attack us, they could have done it already. Their ship is 3 times the size of our entire orbital fleet combined. Which is exactly why we should be careful, Tae-hyun replied. Fear is a weapon too. Make the enemy think they are doomed, then offer salvation. It is the oldest trick in warfare. President Dae-sung raised his hand for silence. Can we communicate with them? Yuna nodded. Yes, they have been waiting for us to respond. I can open a channel whenever you are ready. Do it. The lights in the room dimmed as the main screen came to life. The image was not what anyone expected. The alien appeared as a being made of crystal, its body transparent and filled with swirling lights. It had no face that humans could recognize, but somehow everyone knew it was looking directly at them. When it spoke, the words came through perfectly in multiple languages at once. The technology was beyond anything Earth possessed. Greetings, humans of Earth. We are the Velethan Collective. We come with urgent warning. The erasure approaches your world. You have less than 1 of your years to evacuate your population or face total extinction. President Dae-sung leaned forward. And why should we trust you? Because we have no reason to deceive you. We have witnessed 13 civilizations fall to the erasure. Some listened to our warnings and survived. Others did not. We gain nothing from your destruction and nothing from your salvation except the knowledge that we tried. The Velethan entity raised what might have been a hand. The screen filled with images of other worlds, beautiful planets with cities and forests, oceans and mountains. Then the images changed. Darkness swept across each world like a wave, erasing everything. The cities vanished. The oceans disappeared. Even the planets themselves faded into nothing, leaving only empty space behind. This is not war, the Velethan continued. This is not invasion. This is a natural force of the universe, like your storms or earthquakes, but on a cosmic scale. We have studied it for thousands of your years. We have learned to detect it and predict its path. Your system is directly in its way. General Tae-hyun stood up. And what do you want in return for this warning? What is your price? There is no price. We offer you the specifications for evacuation vessels that can travel beyond the erasure's reach. We offer you coordinates to safe worlds where your people can rebuild. We offer you time to prepare, if you start immediately. President Dae-sung looked at the faces around him. He saw doubt, fear, and anger. How do we know this erasure is real? Show us proof that we can verify ourselves. The Velathan seemed to consider this. We will transmit data to your scientists, gravitational readings, spectroscopic analysis, mathematical models. You will need time to study them. We will wait at your Jupiter orbit. You have 6 of your months before the erasure enters your solar system. After that, evacuation becomes difficult. After 8 months, it becomes impossible. The transmission ended. The room sat in stunned silence. Ambassador Jiwon spoke first. We have to take this seriously. If there is even a chance they are telling the truth, we cannot ignore it. Or this is exactly what they want us to think, Tae-hyun countered. Abandon our defenses, waste our resources building evacuation ships, and then they strike when we are weakest. President Dae-sung rubbed his temples. He looked older than he had that morning. Dr. Yuna, how long will it take to verify their data? Weeks, maybe months. We will need to point every telescope and sensor we have at deep space and look for the signs they described. Then we start there. Commander Hyunwoo, move the fleet to a position between Earth and the alien vessel. Do not engage unless they make hostile moves. General Tae-hyun, put our colonies on alert. Ambassador Jiwon, prepare a diplomatic team in case we need to negotiate. As everyone filed out of the room, Yuna remained behind, staring at the frozen image of the destroyed worlds on her screen. She had spent her entire life studying the stars, dreaming of the day humanity would meet other intelligent beings. She had never imagined first contact would come with a deadline for extinction. In orbit around Jupiter, the Velathan ship waited, in silence, its crystalline surface reflecting the light of the distant sun. Inside, the Velathan crew prepared for a long wait. They had done this before many times. Some species listened, some did not. They hoped humanity would be wise. But hope, they had learned, was not always enough. The world changed overnight. News of the alien warning spread across every screen and device on Earth. People gathered in the streets, in their homes, in places of worship. Everyone had the same question. Was it real? Dr. Sujin barely slept for 3 weeks. She worked at the largest observatory on Earth, and her job was to find the truth. Every night she pointed her telescopes at the coordinates the Velathan had provided. Every night she collected data, analyzed patterns, and checked her calculations again and again. On the 22nd day, she found it. The readings were faint but unmistakable. Something was moving through space toward their solar system, bending gravity around it like a massive invisible object. But when she looked at it through optical telescopes, there was nothing there. Just darkness that seemed to swallow light itself. She published her findings immediately. Within hours, other observatories confirmed her results. The erasure was real, and it was coming. The world divided into 2 camps almost instantly. Ambassador Jiwon led the group that wanted to accept the Velathan's help. She appeared on news programs every day, speaking calmly but urgently about the need to prepare. We are facing something beyond our experience, she said during one broadcast. This is not about pride or independence. This is about survival. The Velathan have the knowledge we need. We should take it. General Tae-hyun led the opposition. He was a decorated war hero, a man who had defended Earth's colonies from pirates and rebels. He did not trust easily, and he especially did not trust aliens who appeared out of nowhere with warnings of doom. Think about what they are asking, he said during a military briefing that was leaked to the press. They want us to abandon our defenses, build evacuation ships with their designs, and flee to worlds they choose for us. Does that sound like salvation, or does it sound like surrender? President Dae-sung called for a global vote. Every citizen over the age of 16, could cast their opinion through the worldwide network. The question was simple: should humanity accept the Velathan's assistance? The debates raged for months. Scientists like Su Jin showed data proving the erasure was approaching. Military leaders like Tai Hyun showed simulations of how building evacuation ships would drain resources from Earth's defenses. Philosophers argued about human dignity. Religious leaders argued about faith and fate. Ambassador Ji-won made the decision that changed everything. Without authorization from President Dae-sung, she took a shuttle to the Velathan ship orbiting Jupiter. Commander Hyun-woo tried to stop her, but she launched before his fleet could intercept. The Velathan welcomed her aboard. She spent 3 days on their vessel, learning everything they would share about the erasure. They showed her historical records of other civilizations. Some had listened to warnings and survived. Their populations scattered across refuge worlds. Others had refused help and were lost completely. One recording haunted her. It showed a species remarkably similar to humans. They had cities, families, art, and music. The Velathan had warned them about the erasure with 2 years of advance notice. That civilization had debated and argued, split into factions, wasted time. By the time they decided to evacuate, only 6 months remained. They managed to save less than 1% of their population. The Velathan had kept their final transmission. It was a leader like President Dae-sung, speaking to the camera with tears in his eyes. "We were fools. We thought we were special, that the rules of the universe did not apply to us. Tell the next ones. Tell them not to make our mistake." When Ambassador Ji-won returned to Earth, she broadcast everything she had learned. The recordings of the lost civilizations played on every news channel. People watched entire worlds vanish into darkness. Children cried. Adults sat in stunned silence. But General Tae-hyun had been preparing his own counter-argument. He held a press conference the next day with his top scientists and engineers. "The Velathans say we need to run," he began. "I say we need to fight. Yes, the erasure is real. Yes, it is coming. But humanity has never survived by running away. We survive by standing our ground and finding solutions." His team presented an alternative plan. Instead of building evacuation ships, Earth would construct a massive energy shield around the entire solar system. They had been studying the Velathan data and believed they had found a pattern. The erasure moved through normal space, which meant it could potentially be blocked or deflected by a strong enough energy field. "It will take all our resources," Tae-hyun admitted. "Every ship, every factory, every power plant will need to be dedicated to this project. But if it works, we save everyone. Not just a lucky few who make it onto evacuation ships, but all 12 billion people on Earth and our colonies." The idea caught fire across Earth. People liked it because it offered hope without surrender. They could stay in their homes, keep their families together, and fight back against the universe itself. It was a very human solution. President Dae-sung faced an impossible choice. The global vote was approaching, and the polls were showing a split almost exactly down the middle. Half the population wanted to accept the Velathan help and evacuate. Half wanted to build the shield and stay. Dr. Yuna tried to make him understand the risk. "The shield is theoretical," she explained in a private meeting. "We have never built anything like it. We do not know if it will work. The evacuation plan is proven. The Velathan have used it to save 13 other species. But if the shield works, we save everyone," Dae-sung replied. "Is that not worth the risk?" "Not if the risk is total extinction." The vote took place on a Tuesday. Every screen on Earth displayed the results as they came in. The numbers climbed slowly, painfully close. In the end, 52% voted to reject the Velathan assistance and build the shield instead. 48% voted to evacuate. President Dae-sung addressed the world that evening. "The people have spoken. We will remain on Earth. We will build the shield. We will prove that humanity's greatest strength is not in running away, but in standing together." Ambassador Ji-won watched the speech from her apartment. She did not cry, but her hands clenched into fists. She had seen the recordings. She knew how this story ended. Commander Hyun-woo received orders to escort the Velathan ship out of the solar system. He flew alongside the massive crystalline vessel as it slowly moved away from Jupiter. Before it jumped to faster-than-light travel, the Velathan sent one final message. "We are sorry we could not convince you. We leave behind all the data and specifications we promised in case you change your minds. But please understand, there is very little time. The erasure will reach your outer system in 6 months. It will reach Earth in 8 months. Pride is often the last emotion of dying species. The message ended. The Velethan ship vanished in a flash of light, jumping to somewhere far away. General Taehyun immediately mobilized every resource on Earth and the colonies. Factories stopped making consumer goods and started making shield generators. Power plants were upgraded. Scientists worked day and night on the calculations. The encrypted files the Velethan left behind sat untouched in Earth's data archives. President Dae-sung had ordered them sealed. "We will do this our way," he declared. "We will prove that humanity does not need alien charity to survive." In her observatory, Dr. Soo-jin watched the erasure grow closer each night. She checked her calculations obsessively. 6 months until it reached the outer solar system. 8 months until it reached Earth. She had voted to evacuate. So had Ambassador Ji-won, Dr. Yuna, and Commander Hyun-woo, but they were the minority now. All they could do was hope the majority was right, and that human engineering could accomplish what seemed impossible. Deep in space, the erasure continued its journey. It did not know about the debate on Earth. It did not care about human pride or human fear. It simply moved forward, as it had moved forward for billions of years, erasing everything in its path. Time was running out. 6 months passed faster than anyone expected. Earth had transformed into a massive construction site. The SHIELD project consumed everything. Cities went dark at night to save power for the generators. Schools closed so their buildings could be converted into manufacturing facilities. Every person on Earth had been assigned a role in the project, whether they wanted one or not. Captain Minho commanded the mining colony on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. His job was to extract rare minerals needed for the SHIELD generators. He had 300 workers under his command, and they operated 24 hours a day in shifts. On a cold Tuesday morning, Europa time, Minho received a message that made his blood run cold. Mining Station 7 had stopped responding to communications. Then Station 8 went silent. Then Station 9. Minho suited up immediately and took a transport ship to investigate. The journey to Station 7 should have taken 30 minutes. But when he arrived at the coordinates, there was nothing there. Not debris. Not wreckage. Nothing. The station had simply vanished. Minho checked his navigation 3 times, certain he had made a mistake. But the coordinates were correct. This was where Station 7 should have been, where 400 people had been working just hours ago. He moved to Station 8's location. Same result. Empty space where a massive industrial facility should have stood. Station 9 was also gone. The last communication from Station 7 had included video footage. Minho played it on his transport ship's screen with shaking hands. The recording showed workers going about their normal routines. Then someone pointed at the observation window. In space beyond the station, something was approaching. It looked like darkness itself, but it moved with purpose and speed. The workers started shouting. Someone hit the evacuation alarm. But before anyone could reach the escape pods, the darkness touched the station's outer hull. The metal began to disappear. Not melting or breaking apart, but simply ceasing to exist. The darkness spread across the station like ink on paper. Workers ran in panic, but there was nowhere to run. When the darkness touched them, they vanished too. No screams, no struggle. Just there 1 second, gone the next. The recording ended when the camera itself was consumed. Minho transmitted everything back to Earth immediately. Within hours, President Dae-sung called an emergency meeting. Dr. Soo-jin's face appeared on every screen, pale and exhausted. "The erasure has entered our solar system," she announced. 3 months ahead of schedule. It is moving faster than we calculated. At current speed, it will reach Mars in 2 months and Earth in 4 months. The room erupted in chaos. General Tae-hyun stood up, slamming his hand on the table. "We just need more time. The shield is 70% complete. Give us 2 more months and we can activate it." "We do not have 2 more months," Dr. Yuna said quietly. "And even if we did, we still do not know if the shield will work." President Dae-sung looked older than his years. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting we consider evacuation. The Velethan left us the plans. We could still build ships. With what resources?" Taehyun demanded. "Everything we have is dedicated to the shield. If we stop now, we will have neither shield nor ships. We will have nothing." Somewhere in a forgotten corner of a government facility, Engineer Hae-won had been thinking the same thing for weeks. She was young, only 29, but brilliant. She had been assigned to work on shield calculations. But at night she did something different. She had found the Velathan data files. They were supposed to be sealed, locked away by presidential order. But Haywan was very good with computers. She had spent 6 months studying the alien designs in secret, understanding how they worked. The Velathan evacuation ships used something called quantum displacement drives. They did not travel through normal space but jumped across it, moving from one point to another almost instantly. With these drives, a ship could evacuate thousands of people beyond the erasure's reach in hours instead of years. Haywan built a prototype in secret, using parts she borrowed from the SHIELD project. It was small, only large enough for 10 people, but it worked. She tested it herself, jumping from Earth to Mars orbit and back in less than a minute. She knew what would happen if she revealed her work. She would be arrested for treason, for stealing resources, for violating presidential orders. But she also knew that the SHIELD was not going to save them. She had seen the calculations. The energy requirements were impossible to meet with Earth's current power generation. Haywan contacted Commander Hyunwoo directly. They had served together years ago during the Mars colony wars. She trusted him more than anyone in the government. When she showed him the prototype ship and explained what she had done, Hyunwoo stared at her in silence for a long moment. Then he made a decision that would either save thousands of lives or end his career. "How many ships can we build with the resources we have available?" he asked. "If we work in secret, maybe 10 ships. Each one could carry 500 people. That is 5,000 people we could save. And if we were not working in secret, if we used government resources, 50 ships, maybe more. But we would need authorization from President Dae-sung, and he will never give it. He has staked everything on the SHIELD." Hyunwoo thought about his daughter, who was 12 years old and lived with her mother on Earth. He thought about all the children like her, who would die because adults made the wrong choice. "Start building the ships," he said. "I will deal with the authorization." But he did not get the chance. 2 weeks later, General Taehyun's intelligence officers discovered what Haywan had been doing. They raided her workshop and arrested her in the middle of the night. The prototype ship was confiscated. All her research was seized. Taehyun held a press conference the next morning. He stood with Haywan in handcuffs beside him, her face bruised from rough treatment during the arrest. "This woman is a traitor," he announced. "While brave people worked to save our world, she stole resources to build escape ships for herself and her friends. She believed that her life was more valuable than the billions who would remain behind." Haywan tried to speak, to explain, but soldiers dragged her away before she could say a word. Commander Hyunwoo watched the broadcast from his ship and felt something break inside him. He had spent his entire life following orders, believing in the chain of command, but he could not follow orders that led to extinction. He contacted every captain in the orbital fleet, people he had served with for decades. "The SHIELD will not work," he told them. "We are running out of time. We need to build evacuation ships now, even if it means going against the president's orders." Some agreed, some refused. Some reported him to General Taehyun. On Mars, the colony began its evacuation. Captain Minho had sent word about what happened to Europa's mining stations, and the Martian government decided not to wait for Earth's permission. They had 12 ships capable of interplanetary travel. They loaded them with as many people as they could hold and prepared to flee. They were too slow. The erasure reached Mars 3 days before the evacuation was complete. The darkness swept across the red planet like a wave across a beach. Cities that humans had spent 50 years building vanished in minutes. Mountains billions of years old disappeared as if they had never existed. The last transmission from Mars showed people screaming, running, trying desperately to reach ships that would not save them. Then the transmission cut off. Mars was gone. 4 million people erased from existence. On Earth, panic finally broke through the careful control of the government. People rioted in the streets. They stormed the facilities where the SHIELD generators were being built, demanding that resources be diverted to building ships instead. President Dae-sung appeared on every screen, trying to maintain calm. "The SHIELD will work," he promised. "We are so close. Just a few more weeks. Please stay calm. Please trust us." But in the observatories, Dr. Soo-jin watched the erasure accelerate again. It had consumed Mars's mass, and the energy seemed to make it move faster. Her new calculations showed Earth had less than 8 weeks. She published her findings to the public network, bypassing government censors. Within hours, everyone on Earth knew the truth. The shield would not be ready in time. If they did not evacuate immediately, they would all die. That night, President Dae-sung sat alone in his office. He looked at the reports, the calculations, the desperate messages from his advisors. He thought about his legacy, about how history would remember him. Then he thought about his grandchildren, who were 6 and 8 years old. They were going to die because he had made the wrong choice. He picked up the phone and called Commander Hyunwoo. "Release Engineer Hae-won," he said, his voice hollow. "Start building the ships. Build as many as you can." "Yes, sir." "And the shield project? Keep the workers on it. Maybe it will buy us a few extra days." Dae-sung closed his eyes. "But start the evacuation. God help us all." 8 weeks was not enough time. It would never be enough time. But it was all they had. Engineer Hae-won was released from prison on a Tuesday morning. She walked out with bruises still visible on her face and wrists, but she did not waste time on rest or recovery. Commander Hyunwoo met her at the prison gate with a transport ship. "How many ships can we build?" he asked as they flew toward the nearest manufacturing facility. "With full government resources and no restrictions? Maybe 40 ships. Each one carries 500 people. That is 20,000 people." Hyunwoo's jaw tightened. "There are 12 billion people on Earth." "I know." The number hung between them like a death sentence. No matter how hard they worked, no matter how many miracles they pulled off, they could only save a tiny fraction of humanity. President Dae-sung addressed the world that night. His face was gray, his eyes hollow. "We will begin immediate evacuation of essential personnel. Scientists, engineers, medical professionals, and a selection of civilians chosen by lottery. I know this is not fair. I know most of you will not have a chance, but we will save who we can." The announcement triggered chaos across the planet. People stormed government buildings demanding to be added to the evacuation lists. Families tried to bribe officials. The wealthy offered fortunes for seats on the ships. The powerful used their connections to secure spots for themselves and their loved ones. Dr. Bora was a medical officer assigned to create the selection criteria. She was 36 and had spent her career treating everyone equally, regardless of wealth or status. Now she had to decide who lived and who died. She developed a point system. Essential skills earned points. Genetic diversity earned points. Age and health earned points. Then she reserved 20% of the seats for a random lottery because she believed everyone deserved at least a chance. But the system collapsed within days. Military officers demanded priority for soldiers and their families. Politicians insisted they needed to survive to rebuild government. Parents begged for their children to be saved. The database of selected people changed every hour as new priorities were added and old ones removed. Young-ho was a civilian engineer who had never worked on anything more important than building housing units. But when he saw Hae-won's ship designs published on the public network, he understood them. He gathered his friends, other engineers and construction workers, and they started building their own ships in secret. They worked in abandoned factories and empty warehouses, using scrap metal and stolen components. Their ships would not be as advanced as Hae-won's official vessels, but they would fly. They had to fly. Young-ho's team completed 12 ships in 5 weeks. Only 5 of them passed basic safety tests, but that was 5 ships that had not existed before. 5 ships that could save 2,500 more people. The erasure was now visible from Earth with basic telescopes. It looked like a growing shadow in space, darker than the natural black of the cosmos. It had consumed the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Now it was eating its way through the orbital facilities around Earth. The shield generators were activated in a desperate last attempt. Every power plant on Earth directed its full output to the massive energy field. For 6 glorious hours it seemed to work. The shield glowed in space like a second sun, a barrier of pure energy surrounding the planet. Then, the erasure touched it. The shield held for exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds. Then it failed, overloaded by forces it was never designed to handle. The generators exploded one by one, killing thousands of workers who had stayed behind to operate them. General Tae-hyun watched his greatest project collapse in real time. He stood at the command center, surrounded by screens showing the shield's catastrophic failure. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he walked out of the facility, got into his personal transport, and flew directly into the erasure. His last transmission was simple. I was wrong. The evacuation entered its final stage. 43 official ships sat ready at various launch facilities around Earth. Young Ho's 5 civilian ships were hidden at a remote site in the Pacific. Every ship was packed beyond its rated capacity. Commander Hyunwoo had to make impossible decisions every hour. A family of 6 arrived at a launch site, but there was only room for 3. Who should stay behind? A brilliant scientist in a wheelchair needed extra space for medical equipment, meaning 2 other people could not board. Should one genius be worth 2 average lives? The embarkation sites became war zones. Desperate people tried to force their way onto ships. Security forces fought to maintain order, but they were overwhelmed. Hyunwoo gave an order he would regret for the rest of his life. Use lethal force if necessary to maintain the evacuation schedule. Thousands died in the riots. Parents threw their children toward the ships, hoping someone would catch them and take them aboard. The ships caught some, others fell and were crushed in the crowds. Dr. Yuna sat in her assigned seat on Ship 7, watching through the window as people clawed at the hull, begging to be let inside. She wanted to open the door to save just one more person, but the ship was already dangerously overloaded. Opening the door would trigger a rush that might kill everyone. Then something unexpected happened. The Velethan returned. Their massive crystalline ship appeared without warning, followed by 30 more vessels of various designs. They broadcast on every frequency at once. We came back. We can evacuate 2 million humans. Bring your people to these coordinates, hurry. President Dae-sung, who had reserved a seat for himself on Ship 1, made his last presidential decision. All available transport redirect to the Velethan coordinates. Get as many people there as possible. The world went mad with hope. Billions of people tried to reach the Velethan ships at once. Every car, plane, boat, and bicycle was pressed into service. But the Velethan coordinates were at specific points around the globe, and most people could not reach them in time. Ambassador Ji-won coordinated with the Velethan directly. They had learned from their previous encounters with dying civilizations. They sent smaller shuttlecraft down to major cities, loading people as quickly as possible. But even with their advanced technology, there were limits. The erasure reached Earth's moon first. Luna Base, home to 200,000 people, vanished in seconds. The moon itself began to crumble at the edges, massive chunks simply ceasing to exist. Commander Hyunwoo stood at his command post, coordinating the evacuation with military precision. His daughter was safe on Ship 7. His ex-wife had made it to a Velethan vessel. He had secured spots for them both in the first week, using his authority while he still had it. Now he watched the countdown on his screen. 30 ships had launched successfully. 10 more were preparing for departure. 3 had been destroyed in riots. The Velethan ships were leaving with their full capacity, 1,700,000 humans aboard. The erasure touched Earth's atmosphere. The sky began to darken in strange ways as air molecules vanished. Weather patterns collapsed. The oceans started to disappear from the edges. Hyunwoo received a transmission from Ship 7. It was his daughter, crying, begging him to get on a ship and escape. He smiled at the camera. I have to make sure everyone else gets off first. That is my job. Be brave for me, Dad, please, I love you. Remember that. No matter what happens, remember that I love you. He cut the transmission before she could respond. He had work to do. The last ship launched with 10 minutes to spare. It was overcrowded, poorly balanced, and making strange noises that suggested the engines were failing. But it lifted off and made it to orbit. Commander Hyunwoo watched it go from the ground. He was standing at the now empty launch facility with 50 other people, volunteers who had stayed behind to help others evacuate. They knew what was coming. The erasure swept across the landscape like a wave of absolute nothing. Cities vanished. Mountains disappeared. The oceans evaporated into non-existence. Hyunwoo thought about his daughter's face. He thought about all the people on the ships flying toward an uncertain future, but at least flying toward something. He thought about the 10 billion people who were about to die because their leaders, himself included, had made the wrong choices. The darkness reached him. He had time for one last thought. I hope they learn from this. Then Commander Hyunwoo ceased to exist. Along with Earth and everyone still on it in space, 48 human ships and 30 Velethan vessels watched their homeworld disappear. The planet that had given birth to humanity, that had held 12 billion people just months before simply vanished from the universe. Inside Ship 7, Hyun-woo's daughter screamed. She was not alone. Everyone who had left someone behind screamed or cried or sat in shocked silence. They had survived. But the cost of that survival would haunt them forever. The evacuation was complete. Humanity had been reduced from 12 billion to 1,720,000. Less than 0.2% of the population remained. The erasure continued moving through the solar system, consuming Venus and Mercury before finally passing beyond. It left nothing behind but empty space where a civilization had once thrived. In the lead Velathan ship, Ambassador Ji-won sat with her head in her hands, wondering if survival was worth the guilt. The journey to the Velathan sanctuary worlds took 3 months. The human ships traveled in formation with their alien escorts, moving through a part of space humanity had never seen before. The ships were crowded, resources were limited, and grief hung over everyone like a physical weight. Elder Yoon was 78 years old. He had been a teacher before the evacuation, and now he became something else. The survivors needed someone to help them remember, to preserve what humanity had been. They chose him because he was old enough to have memories of Earth before the crisis, before the debates and the panic. He spent his days on Ship 7 talking to people, recording their stories. A mother who had to choose which of her 3 children would come with her. A father who gave his seat to a stranger's child. A woman who survived only because she won a lottery with odds of 1 in 6 million. They all asked the same question. Why did we not listen? Dr. Yuna tried to answer that question in the scientific terms she understood. She wrote papers analyzing the decision-making process, studying how fear and pride had combined to create paralysis. But the answer always came back to something simple. Humanity had believed it was special, that the normal rules did not apply to them. The ships arrived at Sanctuary World 7 on a Tuesday morning, Earth time. It was a beautiful planet with blue oceans and green continents. The Velathan had prepared it for refugees, building basic shelters and establishing food production facilities. As the first humans stepped off the ships onto alien soil, many of them collapsed and cried. They were alive. Against all odds, they had survived. But the weight of who had not survived crushed them. President Dae-sung had secured a seat for himself in those early days, when he still had the power to do so. Now he stood at the landing site, watching his people emerge from the ships, and he understood that he had lost any right to lead them. A council of survivors arrested him on the 3rd day. The charges were simple: criminal negligence leading to the extinction of the human species. He did not resist. He knew he deserved whatever punishment they chose. His trial lasted 2 weeks. Witnesses testified about his decisions, his refusal to accept the Velathan warning earlier, his dedication to the SHIELD project even when evidence showed it would fail. Dr. Soo-jin spoke about the months wasted on construction that could have been spent on evacuation. Dae-sung did not defend himself. When given the chance to speak, he said only this: "I thought I was protecting humanity's dignity. Instead, I destroyed humanity's future. I am guilty of everything you accuse me of and more." The council sentenced him to life in exile. He would live alone on a remote island on Sanctuary World 7, with no contact with other humans except a weekly supply drop. He accepted the sentence without complaint. Engineer Hai-wan became the chief architect of new humanity. She was young and carried physical and emotional scars from her imprisonment, but she understood what needed to be done. The survivors had to build a new civilization from almost nothing. She organized the construction efforts, designed settlements, and trained others in Velathan technology. The aliens had given humanity access to their knowledge, holding nothing back. They said it was because humanity had earned it through suffering. Young-ho and his team of civilian engineers worked alongside Hai-wan. They built homes, schools, hospitals, everything a civilization needed. But they built small. 1,700,000 people could not fill a planet the way 12 billion had filled Earth. 6-year-old Nari was the youngest person on Ship 7. She had been chosen by lottery, pulled from her mother's arms and carried aboard by a soldier who had to leave his own family behind. She barely remembered Earth now. Sanctuary World 7 was becoming her home. Elder Yoon spent hours with Nari and other children, teaching them about Earth. He showed them pictures of mountains and oceans, cities and forests. He told them about snow and rain, about beaches and deserts, about all the things that no longer existed. Why did the adults not save Earth? Nari asked one day. Yoon thought carefully about his answer. Because we were afraid of the wrong things. We were afraid of losing our pride, of looking weak, of depending on others. We should have been afraid of extinction. The Velethin maintained a permanent presence on Sanctuary World 7. Their chief liaison, a crystalline being humans called Bright One, met regularly with the human leaders. During one such meeting, Ambassador G1 asked the question that had been haunting her. Why do you do this? Why do you spend so much effort saving species like ours? Bright One's response came slowly, as if choosing words carefully. Because we were once like you. Millions of years ago, another species warned us about a different threat. We ignored them. We lost our homeworld and 99% of our population. The survivors vowed to never let another species suffer the same fate if we could prevent it. But we did suffer it, despite your warning. Yes, you are the 14th species we have tried to save. You are the 4th that ignored our initial warning. We have learned that some species must touch the fire before they believe it burns. Jiwon felt tears in her eyes. How many humans did you originally calculate you could save if we had accepted your help immediately? 8 billion. Possibly 9. The number hit her like a physical blow. 8 billion people could have survived if humanity had simply listened. Instead, they saved less than 2 million. The price of pride had been measured in billions of lives. Dr. Yuna established what she called the Archives of Hubris. It was a massive digital library containing every decision, every debate, every mistake that led to Earth's destruction. She made it available to all survivors and required that every child study it as part of their education. We must never forget, she said at the archive's opening ceremony. If we forget, we risk repeating our mistakes. The years passed. The human population on Sanctuary World 7 grew slowly. Children like Nari grew up, had children of their own. New generations were born who never knew Earth except through stories and recordings. Commander Hyunwoo's daughter, now grown and with children of her own, helped build a memorial to those who did not survive. It stood at the center of the largest settlement, a simple stone wall with 12 billion names carved into it. It took 15 years to complete. The survivors built a good life on their new world. They learned from the Velethin, adapted to alien ecosystems, and slowly created a new human culture. But they never forgot where they came from or why they had lost it. 50 years after the evacuation, the human population had grown to 8 million. 3 new settlements had been established on other continents. Human children played alongside Velethin young. The 2 species had become friends, bound by shared trauma and hope for the future. Then, on a spring morning, a message arrived that changed everything. It was a distress call from a distant star system. Another species had been detected in the path of a cosmic threat similar to the erasure. They needed to be warned. The Velethin asked humanity for help. You understand what they will face. You know the mistakes they might make. Will you help us warn them? The Human Council debated for 3 days. Some argued that humanity was still recovering from its own trauma and should not get involved. Others said this was a chance for redemption, to prevent another species from suffering what they had suffered. Elder Yoon, now 128 years old and near the end of his life, spoke at the final council session. We have a choice. We can hide here and pretend the universe is someone else's problem, or we can become the warners we once needed. We cannot change our past, but we can change someone else's future. The council voted to help. Ambassador Ji-won, now elderly but still sharp, volunteered to lead the mission. She would travel to the endangered species and deliver the warning humanity had once ignored. Before she left, she visited the memorial wall with its 12 billion names. She found Commander Hyunwoo's name near the bottom and placed her hand against it. We learned, she whispered. It cost us everything, but we learned. I promise I will make them listen. The human warning ship launched alongside a Velethin vessel. Engineer Haewon had designed it herself, incorporating everything humanity had learned about evacuation and survival. The ship was small but carried a crew of 20 humans and 10 Velethin. Their mission was simple: convince another species to avoid humanity's mistakes. As the ship prepared to jump to faster-than-light travel, young Nari, now 56 years old and a mother of 3, stood at the observation deck watching it go. Her children stood beside her, asking questions about the mission. Why do we have to warn them? Her youngest asked. What if they do not listen like we did not listen? Nari thought about her mother. who she barely remembered, who had died on Earth along with billions of others. She thought about Commander Hyunwoo, who stayed behind so others could escape. She thought about all the names on the memorial wall. Because listening is hard, she said. Pride is easy. Believing you are special is easy. Accepting that you need help is the hardest thing in the universe. But we have to try. If we do not warn them, who will? The ship vanished in a flash of light, jumping toward a star system 800 light-years away. They would arrive in 2 months. The endangered species had 1 year before their threat arrived. Whether they would listen or not was their choice.